Eric here with the Paperback Warrior blog, podcast, and YouTube channel. In this video, I'm recapping my book shopping experiences in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was up that way last month to see the greatest band of all time, Iron Maiden. Anytime I'm in another part of the country, I check out the book scene. There are two stores in Charlotte that most of the Facebook book community discusses. The first one is called The Book Rack. Now, of course, this is a chain of independent bookstores that pay a franchise fee to Book Rack, and in return they gain signage, a payroll system, and a few other odds and ends to help them grow and maintain their book-selling business. So I'm always happy to visit one of their stores. So let's start there with the Book Rack in Charlotte. Let's go in and take a look. This is a fairly large store that has one main central section that's rather deep. There's a right side that expands into other parts of the store, all easily outlined with shelving units to guide you into the various genres. I took a quick lap, and then I started with the back corner of movie and comic tie-in books. Here you see a good selection of Batman paperbacks. These are all good-looking books. And here you see a John Constantine Hellblazer paperback. I found these 6 Indiana Jones paperbacks. I've never read one of these books. I hear some are really good, some not so much. I think the one with the dinosaur eggs is supposed to be the best of the bunch. Here's a few Highlander paperbacks. So much for there can be only one. I see 6. You like what I did there? It's clever, right? And here's a couple more DC comic tie-in paperbacks. James Bond fans out there, here's one Ian Fleming book, Goldfinger. The rest are the John Gardner hardcover Bond books post-Fleming. I always like the name of this one because it's my favorite brand of mints. If I ever go missing, please tell the police to just follow the trail of empty icebreakers. Also, I'm not sure why James Bond is even in this section. Here's a Planet of the Apes omnibus, and a paperback in the Space 1999 series of TV tie-in paperbacks. The Truth is Out There, and it's in Spanish. Here's 2 early paperbacks in the X-Files series. This is Antibodies by Kevin Anderson and Goblins by Charles Grant. I've never seen these versions before. They're on a paperback publisher called Jet, and of course, they're in Spanish. Okay, let's go out of this section and get into the western corner of the store. Here you have paperbacks by Lou Cameron and Todd Hunter Ballard. Also, the second Fargo book, which of course is by Ben Haas. Here's some series installments. You have the Angel series on the left, Sundance in the middle, and a Carmody novel on the right. Here you'll see a Renegade book. This is the 6th installment. The other book pictured is a short story collection, and you can see the table of contents there. Here's a few other paperbacks. Ernest Haycock's, Paul Evan Lehman, Robert Kamen. And here's a few others. And some more. And you see a couple of Lee Florin books here as well. Here's 4 books in the Dakota Bush Western series. The name on the covers is Mitchell Dana, but the real author was Myron Dano. They're from the mid-1970s, I believe. I've never seen these before. And here you see a cross-section of Lewis B. Patton books. I see one on Fontana. There's one on Charter, Tor, Signet, Leisure. Man, he got around, didn't he? All right, let's move over to the men's action-adventure section. This is the place where they put the most obvious books of this genre. But authors like Jack Higgins and Desmond Bagley, for example, were all placed in general fiction. Whether that's really correct or not, it's up for debate, I guess. But there's lots of stuff in this photo. I see Mac Bolan Giants, Able Team, Executioner series. There's some William Johnstone non-Western titles. There's the Deathlands spinoff Outlanders. I also see a Navy SEALs book in there. Just lots and lots of stuff in there. I pulled out this series just to see what it was. This is the Hogs series, published by Berkley between 1999 and 2002. This store had 2 installments. The books were authored by Jim DeFelice as James Farrow, and these are aviation combat books. And here you see a few Deathlands books. I love that series, as you know. And here are 3 Trace books by the Destroyer author, Warren Murphy. This series was published between 1983 and 1987. Now, Trace is a guy named Devlin Tracy that works as a Las Vegas private eye. Here's a couple of Parker reprints by Donald Westlake. And here I see 7 books in the Rogue Angel series. My dad read these and seemed to really enjoy them. I can recall reading the first book and liking it, but I just never continued on for some reason. Maybe I should try to revisit this series at some point. Okay, moving into the science fiction and fantasy section now, I do believe this whole middle section that you see is mostly Star Trek paperbacks. You can see it spills to the right on the top there before getting into Star Wars. Here they have 13 Isaac Asimov Ace paperbacks. And here's a group of Marion Zimmer Bradley Dahl paperbacks. And you see Arthur C. Clarke on Del Rey, Signet, Belmont, and Tor. Here are books in the Gandalara cycle by authors Randall Garrett and Vicky Hadron. Anyone read these? I'm not familiar with this series. Next is general fiction, and you see here that they have Jack Higgins. The far left is a Pan edition. Then you have 2 Corgi paperbacks here, and then a Fawcett Gold Medal. I've read all of these except Violent Enemy. And then you have these. I think these are really cool because you have a Fawcett using Higgins' real name of Harry Patterson. Same with the other one, which is actually on Arrow. Then you see another Fawcett there with his pseudonym of James Graham. Then a cool Dell paperback cover for Solo, which is the first Dell published book I've seen by Higgins. This last one is a later novel by Wilbur Smith on Fawcett. I actually wanted to read this book and I had it in my hand, but I ended up putting it back. But I'm going to talk about it again in just a little bit because we are now going to leave this store and we're going to go into another Charlotte bookstore called Book Buyers. They're in the northern area of Charlotte, and let me just first start by saying this is one of the most comfortable stores I've ever been in. A nice elderly lady came over to say hello to me at the door. There were lamps on with soft lighting, and there was some jazz music playing. It was like instant melancholy. Not that the book rack was bad, but this store felt so much better to me. And you can see in these 2 photos that the store is really deep. It's a narrow store, but they have about 6 to 7 shelving units that are front and back, and they seem like they're a mile long. Just loads and loads of books here that seem to make long hallways. But I will say that the books are in really good shape, which sometimes is an early indicator that the used section of the books we like to read probably won't be here. But I was wrong in this instance. Book Buyers had a really good selection. Let's start with science fiction with this Ace paperback by E.C. Tubb and a laser book, number 36. And here's a vintage paperback on Digit. This was a British publisher that launched in 1956, so this is very cool. This is another British paperback. It's called Dark Dominion by David Duncan. It's a 1961 reprint of a 1954 Ballantine paperback. The publisher is Console Books. They were based out of Manchester and were an imprint of World Distributors. This is a 1981 hardcover of the 3-book series To the Stars by Harry Harrison. Now, I have these books individually as Signet paperbacks from 1980 and 1981. The 3 books in the series are Homeworld, Wheel World, and Star World. But this is a nice omnibus featuring all 3 books together in one volume. They also had more Harrison novels, including these 2 stainless steel rat books. They had this Dan Strebe novel in science fiction, but this is an action-adventure paperback in the Counterforce series, which is similar to the author's Kill Force and Death Squad series titles. You see some Tor and Ace Conan paperbacks here. And here's 3 Plantation Gothics by Lance Horner, all on Fawcett Gold Medal. Here's 3 paperbacks. The one on the left is an entry in the Saigon Commando series. The middle one is a reprint of the 1919 novel. The one on the far right is from 1974. Dallas Barnes was a Los Angeles police officer that wrote a number of crime fiction novels. So you see one right there. Here you have the 7th novel in the Overload Trucker Vigilante series. The middle one is the first novel in the SOBs series. This one on the right I've never read before. Paul Erdman was a Canadian writer that won an Edgar in 1974 for his first novel, The $1 Billion Sure Thing. This is his second career novel, The Silver Bears from 1974. Erdman specializes in finance fiction. All of the books center around economics and banking business plots. Here are 3 paperback novels on Arrow by Jack Higgins with his own name on the covers. The one on the far right is actually on Panther using the pseudonym of James Gregg. The other 2 are Arrow. And here's 2 Fontana paperbacks. These were British editions. Remember my Alistair MacLean collection video I did earlier this month? I can now add this novel to that collection because I ended up buying this one. Here are a couple of great looking paperbacks. On the left is a Dell one from 1960. The right is a Black Lizard book from 1988. And you've got a few giants of crime fiction here. You've got Henry Kane, Ross MacDonald, and John MacDonald. And another giant of crime fiction here, three really nice pocketbook editions of Perry Mason. And here's a Penguin edition of Perry Mason. The middle book is a Cool and Lamb paperback, and the right is a Fletch book by Gregory MacDonald, which I need to get around to reading these Fletch books. Another Gregory MacDonald here. The middle book is a Peter Stiles installment. That one on the right, I didn't get to check the year on it. It's World War II fiction on Ballantine. Here's a Rex Stout and Ellery Queen. But this World War II paperback on the left looked amazing. That cover is just great. And here you see some Ed McBain, some John D. MacDonald, and some Del Shannon. You see some Mickey Spillane there, and I'm not familiar with Leslie Ford. Here you see a collection of Richard Lehman books. I think I've read all of these. Below that are some Dean Koontz books. I recently did a ranking video on Koontz that really had a lot of views and comments. It was really cool. Seeing this makes me think the store owner might be a Scientologist or something. That's a ton of newer looking L. Ron Hubbard editions. They just seem so purposeful there with so many in new condition. And here's your Mac Bolins and your Stony Mans. Up top there you see the Destroyer books, which, speaking of Destroyer, be sure to check out the new collection of Destroyer short stories that are out now on Bold Venture Press. And here's a good selection of westerns by Zane Grey and Frank Gruber. A few more westerns here on the following few photos. Okay, so I bought just a few things. The first is this nautical horror novel called Death Hulk. I was ecstatic to see this. There was a series of 18 paperbacks that were published in the 2000s by a small British publisher called Abaddon Books. The theme of these books is zombies, but it combines action-adventure with the undead. Like one of these books is called The Viking Dead, and it has Vikings battling zombies. However, I've never owned or read one of these books. I never got them when they first came out. However, I had forgotten the names of the books, the publisher name, and the series name. I had often searched for zombie novels online to try to find the names of these books, and I just never came up with anything. But seeing this book here finally clicked for me the name and the publisher. So I paid $5 for this book. And here's the Secret Ways book I showed you earlier. This is the 1959 Fontana edition, and I paid $4. I bought these two Conan paperbacks because I didn't have them. They were $7 each, but these Tor books are really becoming hard to find these days, so I didn't mind the higher price. Alright, so get this. At the register when you go to pay, they have a bookshelf, and you can pick any book off the shelf, and they give it to you for free when you spend $10. So I was really happy to see this Wilbur Smith book, The Diamond Hunters. Just an hour or so before walking into this store, I came close to buying this book from the book rack and would have wasted $4. So I got it for free right here. The lady at the register was very kind and asked if it was my first time in the store, and I explained I was there from Florida. It was just a really nice short conversation. And that wraps up my short trip to Charlotte. I hit those two stores, saw the concert, and then drove home the following morning. I hope you enjoyed this shopping trip, and I'll be back soon with a war-themed shopping trip I made to Chamlin's Book Mine in Jacksonville, Florida. Bombs away, coming soon. Until then, take care and enjoy whatever it is you're doing.